Indy 500 practice day 2 wrapped up on Wednesday. We'll talk about that. Chicagoland updated their website. Is that a sign of a NASCAR return? Plus, the Australian Supercars invasion of NASCAR is going to continue once again this summer. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. How much weight do you all think that a Buc-ee's has in landing, I don't know, like NASCAR championship weekend? Because, well, the track president in Kansas seems to think that it's going to carry a lot of weight and could help his track land said championship race. Now, if you're not familiar with the Kansas Speedway area along I-70 right there, it's in Kansas, unlike Kansas City, which is technically in Missouri. The actual Kansas Speedway is along I-70, about 20-ish minutes from downtown on the highway. Like when you get out of it, maybe a little bit further than that. And there's some property between the highway and the racetrack. They're building a Buc-ee's there. There's also the Sporting KC Stadium, some stores, and like an entertainment district, kind of like the suburbs just built up around Kansas, like what should have happened in Kentucky, but it's Kentucky, so it didn't happen. Now they're going to land a Buc-ee's, and the track president thinks that's going to help them land a Cup Series date. And I'll be honest, if a gas station and a convenience store is the reason why you land a big time race, we might just be cooked overall, because that should carry zero weight whatsoever. There's a literal casino that looks over the backstretch there. That should be a much bigger pool than the Buc-ee's out front. Also, the local news station in Kansas City has zero idea how the Cup Series schedule works, and they believe that a championship race at Kansas would mean that the racetrack would have 3 Cup races in one season. That's absolutely not going to happen. Their playoff race would just move to the championship race from there. I thought that was pretty self-explanatory, but not everybody follows the sport, so whatever. But hey, man, it turns out if you think you want a championship race, just build a Buc-ee's there. Hey, we want to host a Super Bowl. You got a Buc-ee's around? No? All right, then sorry, you can't have it. It's just banana land to me. Now let's get into what we want to talk about today. We're going to start off with Indy 500 practice, and hey, you'll never guess who paced it. Well, it would be the guy that has won basically every race this season, that being Alex Palou with a 227.5 mile per hour lap. Once again, he looked incredibly strong. I told you guys yesterday, he and Newgarden were my picks for guys that were super good at working through traffic and getting themselves in the lead and position where they want to be at. Once again, basically solidified it. I think right now it's a 4-horse race based off of what we've seen in practice so far, that being Alex Palou, his teammate Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, his teammate Will Power. Those 4 cars seem to be far and away better than everybody else right now. It just is what it is. I'm slightly concerned about the speed of the Arrow McLaren cars. They just don't seem to have it at this point. Kyle Larson was 13th fastest on the board. He led the way for Arrow McLaren in that number 17 car. His fastest lap of 223.9? Yes, 0.9 mile per hour. I wanted to get that correct. He turned in a total lap of 107 laps, which was behind Helio Castroneves, who turned in 114 laps. And then you had Felix Rosenquist, 112 laps. Those Meyer-Shank guys were out there turning in mileage on Wednesday. Larson had the 4th highest number of laps turned in that. I would be slightly concerned for the rest of the McLaren team right now. Now, of course, we're 2 days into practice. We once again were interrupted by rain to start. We had a lightning hold at one point as well. Then in the last 45 minutes, it got really hectic out on the racetrack. We also saw the ECR, the Ed Carpenter Racing guys, go out there and try to do some single car runs in the closing minutes of practice. There's once again a threat of rain on Thursday. Same thing on Friday. Saturday appears to be clear. There's a morning warm-up at 8:30 on Saturday, and then they get into qualifying at 11. We'll see how that plays out. But right now, I think those 4 that I mentioned before are the favorites. Indiana's favorite son, Connor Daly, P5 on the board. I don't expect them to have that much speed in qualifying, but I think that car with Connor Daly, once again, is going to be very good in race trim, and would not be shocked to see him flirting around in the top 10 and maybe even contending for the top 5 there for a little bit. David Malukas was in P6. Again, they've got some influence there from Penske. Good to see him up on the board because, well, he didn't get to run this race last year, obviously, when he was with Arrow McLaren and he broke his wrist and everything like that. But they didn't have that much speed yesterday as well. Marcus Armstrong is 7th, Helio Castroneves in 8th, Jack Harvey, P9, and Christian Rasmussen, P10 in that other ECR car. So, I don't think we've learned a ton yet. There's still a lot to be learned. I think Thursday, definitely Friday, is going to show us a lot. Thursday, tomorrow's practice, assuming it's not, rained out or anything like that, I think you're going to see truly what the pace is for a lot of guys in race trim. I think that's when we're going to get to see how the handling is for a lot of cars and see how they're going to maneuver around this. Friday, we're of course going to get qualifying sims for Fast Friday. Boost is going to get turned up for qualifying. again, you want to start up front. You don't have to start up front. We've seen Joseph Newgarden come from, mid-pack and win this race just 2 years ago. So it can definitely be done, but starting up front is going to certainly be to your advantage. So you're going to want to do that. Overall, clean day, no incidents. Love to see that. Getting into Thursday, you don't want to have a wreck on Thursday or Friday. That is really going to set you back going into qualifying and could really hamper your race. At the end of the day, one car is going to go home this weekend. There's 34 cars here for 33 spots. Ed Carpenter was the slowest. Santino Ferrucci in 33rd. I still don't think that they're going to be the guys on that cut line, that flirt line, that are going to have to go into that last chance, last row shootout, whatever they want to refer to it as. I'm going to call it a last chance qualifier like I was in Supercross here. But ultimately, I think that you're going to see the Prima cars down there and maybe even VK or Jacob Abel at this point. Those DCR cars just don't have a ton of speed that we've seen yet. Obviously, things can change. Is there a chance that Chicagoland Speedway is coming back? Well, of course, there's always a chance, right? There's a chance that anything can happen. But at the end of the 2019 season, after Alex Bowman went bog deep, Cleves McFarland style in the infield, and after winning that race, the track shut down. Didn't have a NASCAR Cup Series race in 2020. NASCAR left town like they were Jake and Elric, just getting out of Joliet, because who wants to go to Joliet unless you work at one of the many warehouses around the area, or you want to do a Route 66 trip or something like that. It's not the entertainment capital of the world. It's not a big time market that you want to visit, but NASCAR fans are clamoring to go back to Chicagoland because there's a certain sect of the fan base that hates the Chicago street course, even though it's done more exposure for the sport than Chicagoland ever had. And there's a lot of thought that the Gen 7 car would race really well at Chicagoland. And I'm not going to dispute that at all. I think it probably would race really well. You've had that track sit around for a few years through a Chicago winter. It's probably pretty worn out at this point. It's going to take some work to get that facility back up into shape. But Courtney on Twitter posted Wednesday that the track had updated the website. Check back for events coming soon and sign up for email alerts and things like that. It's like, oh wow, maybe they did breathe new life into this website. They resurrected it, as some would say, and they're gonna maybe make a potential announcement, right? So I went to the Wayback Machine. How long has this website been updated like this? And well, it dates back to December of 2024. So it's been up there for about 6 months now like this. So it wasn't a new revamp of the website, just kind of flew under the radar because, well, I don't think anybody really cared to look at this point. Before that, it was the Super Motocross playoff, header that they had up there. Now they have the picture of the racetrack. So Jarrett, the Iceberg on YouTube, he posted that on the track map, they've sort of identified a Turn 4 club, which wasn't previously on a track map, which I 100% agree with. I couldn't find it on a track map. It does appear in pictures that maybe it has existed there in the past, but wasn't signified. Could be something, could be nothing, but I think it's worth noting there. Then you, of course, have the ongoing job postings for Chicagoland Speedway, part-time nurse, part-time security staff, part-time event staff, stuff like that. That's been happening since NASCAR left this racetrack back in 2020, and it happens every year where people are like, oh my God, are they hiring for a NASCAR return? Well, no, it's still a facility that hosts events, so they still need to have these people on staff. Just because they don't have NASCAR doesn't mean that they don't have other things happening at the facility. So I don't read too much into that. Then, of course, you had the NASCAR Fan Council that went around, I believe, last week asking, where would you like to see the NASCAR Championship race go to? And Chicagoland was on the list of choices because, well, it is an ISC property at the end of the day. Again, you're not going to have a championship race in Chicago. I just don't think that's going to happen, at least not right now. So there's a lot of smoke. There's just not any fire yet. And of course, Chicago Street Race is in the last year of its contract. There are two option years after this, but both have to be picked up by both parties. So if one party says no, then the deal's done. It's not going to happen. Right now, I would say that they probably don't return to the Chicago Street Race last year. So maybe Chicagoland does return. I think the Street Race is either going to take a year off or it's going to be headed somewhere else next year. And if it doesn't go somewhere in 26, it will definitely be somewhere in 27 because the street race does exactly what NASCAR wants it to do. Yeah, it loses money for them. It's a loss leader, though. It brings in a ton of corporate sponsors. It does a ton of exposure for the sport in markets where they, previously were having a struggle to get people to come out, outside of the core fan base, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that the street race absolutely serves a purpose in NASCAR. It needs to continue, whether it's in Chicago, San Diego, Denver, does not matter. It needs to continue on. And if they do return to Chicagoland, hey, I hope it's a good race. Going to Chicagoland doesn't really appeal to me in terms of a destination to travel to, but I hope it does put on a good race. And the Gen 7 car historically has raced well at 1.5 miles, so it should. We'll wait and see, though. And last topic of the day, the Australian Supercars invasion of NASCAR is going to continue once again this summer as a trio heads from down under, like their Australian punters headed up to take college punter jobs, as 3 Australian Supercar drivers will be making their appearances in Chicago on 4th of July weekend. 2 in the Cup Series, 1 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, based off of the rumors, things I've been hearing, and what has come out of Australia from a number of reports. So we'll start off with the Cup Series side of things. Will Brown will be returning to the Cup Series. Obviously, he made a start last year with Richard Childress Racing. That car at Chicago is being driven by Austin Hill, so there's no spot for Will Brown there. It appears that he'll be driving a 3rd Kaulig Racing car, the same thing that Shane Van Gisbergen did last year, won a pole with it, so there's some speed in that race car. Then on the Ford side of things, you have Cam Waters returning back up to the NASCAR Cup Series. He made a start last year with RFK at Sonoma, did some Truck Series stuff as well. It appears that he will be driving a 4th RFK racing car based on things we've been hearing. 4th RFK racing car, maybe 2nd Rick Ware racing car, somewhere in the fold, but they're going to be getting some support from RFK if he's over at Rick Ware Racing. Somewhere in that realm there. Then on the Xfinity Series side of things, you have Brock Feeney, who is teammates with Will Brown at Triple Eight Engineering. It appears that he'll be driving a 4th Kaulig Racing NASCAR Xfinity Series car in the Chicago Street Race. Really good opportunity for him. Those Kaulig cars had a ton of speed last year on road courses, as evidenced by Shane Van Gisbergen, and I think putting him in a type of racetrack that he's going to be familiar with is certainly going to go a long way for him. The other 2 in the Cup Series, I think based off of car count, we should probably have a car going home, maybe 1, maybe 2 going home. So they're going to have to qualify on speed. I have no doubts that they'll be able to do that. It's a track type that they're very familiar with, a street course, and a car that they've been in before. They're going to be very comfortable in as well. And hey, they could probably contend for top 10s in all honesty, the same way Shane Van Gisbergen has. If SVG doesn't get taken out by Chase Briscoe last year in 2024, I think he probably wins that race, not with relative ease, but I don't think there's going to be much of a question there at the end of who's going to win it. So yeah, I'm excited to see these guys come over and try their hand. I like when drivers try different disciplines, want to go try other things. Obviously, the Australian Supercar schedule isn't as extensive as the NASCAR Cup Series, exhaustive as the NASCAR Cup Series, so they have some off weeks. They can travel over and try it out. Ultimately, I'd love to see some Cup guys go down and try out Supercars, but the Cup schedule just doesn't have any free time in it outside of when the season ends. They could go down and try Adelaide, which is what Kyle Larson has talked about doing. Kyle Busch has talked about doing it as well. And hopefully we can maybe get somebody from the Ford camp to go down there and try it out. Toyota will be joining Supercars in 26, so maybe we can get a Toyota driver down there in 26 to try it out. Who knows? But I like the crossover here. I saw somebody on Reddit being like, I'm so tired of the Australians coming over. How can you be tired of watching guys want to try their hand at other disciplines? How is that not cool to people? I don't understand that at all, because it is very fun to see. So we'll see how it all plays out. Chicago, 4th of July weekend should be pretty entertaining. Hopefully, maybe we get another surprise winner. I don't know. But let me know in the comments what you thought about Indy practice day 2. Is NASCAR returning to Chicagoland? And the Australian Supercars trio, headed up to NASCAR this summer at Chicago. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.